for anyone
Sure.
who might be watching this later or whatever, what's the event that we've got coming up here?
So this is kind of a joint event between AI Theology and Christian Transhumanist Association. We were able to reach out to Josh, who just released a book on social robots, and he's a Christian and really has a proposal around really basically a strong argument to give personhood to robots, and we would like to hear on that. And I think there's a lot of interest on that topic. So it's really an idea to start a conversation. It's going to be very informal. We have a few questions, but it's basically an opportunity for him to promote his book and for us to kind of start a discussion. And so yeah, definitely spread the word around, and also a way to test Clubhouse as a kind of as this audio podcast style type of interaction, which we found to be interesting. So it's both also kind of a little bit of a test event for again for both AI theology and CTA.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is. And let me know if you have questions. If anybody needs a Clubhouse invite, I still have I think about 7 that I need to give away.
Yeah, so that's next Thursday, a week from now, April the 8th, 8 p.m. Central Time. Yeah, so definitely join us for that. You can ask questions, interact with Josh. That'll be good, and allow us to have a really interesting discussion. I think he's reaching a different group of people than we would conventionally, and so it's actually good, I think, for us to have some friendly bridges going into different things like that. And yeah, so all right, that said, if there's no more questions, I'll turn it over to Mark and let him get started on what he'd like to discuss with us this evening.
Can y'all hear me? Mm-hmm. It's good. Okay, so y'all have to forgive a little bit here because I'm working on someone else's computer and I'm in a hotel. I like my big screen. I'm on a little bitty computer, and so my notes are on my phone because they couldn't get anything printed on paper. So some of my side notes might be a little bit wonky. How do I share? Oh, I just share screen. Host has it disabled.
Yeah, give me a second. I'll have to change the permissions on this. Let me see. All participants. Oh, also, we're doing this again next month, next first Thursday, and Chris Bennick will be leading that discussion. And if any of the rest of you are interested in leading a discussion, then let me know so we can get that scheduled out. And Mark, you should be able to share now.
Let's see. Oh, it gives you all sorts of choices. So I can do,
Oh,
I didn't know that. I wonder if I could break out my notes. Hold on just a second. I'm going to stop this real quick and see if I can break my notes off of that and then do it this way. That would be, I have my notes now. Okay, so are you guys seeing just the screen alone? Contemplating. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so it's going to take me a second to get these things rearranged, but that is awesome. Now I have my notes at my fingers. Okay, guys, so let's see. Let me see if I can minimize that. Okay, so here we go. This is Contemplating an Undivided World, the Great Commission fulfilled potentially through a brain-computer interface. So we're going to jump in. We have a few slides here. So you guys know Mark Russell. I was born, just a quick little introduction. I was born, this is over near Lorenzo. So Mountain View, I know you're somewhere close to there, but I was born, I don't know, right next to the Google complex, right between NASA, just right down south.
Oh yeah, the Century Cinema, yeah.
Yeah, not too
hopefully
far
I get to
away.
go back to it, if COVID.
I would love to go over. visit that place again. So I was born to a mom that was highly religious, Southern Baptist, and a scientific mathematician from Berkeley who worked at NASA. So I had those two influences. And so unfortunately, super traumatic, I would say, divorce that I think probably led me to an above average desire to see those religion and science reconciled. So in 2011, went to Bible college, but in 2011, I found out about Transcendent Man. And so things started to click. I was like, wow, this seems like a little bit of a, something that's right up my alley and connecting these two. So let's see, is this thing going to work? It's going slow. So what we're going to talk about, the Great Commission, anytime you're looking into the future, 1 Corinthians 13:9 says, we know in part, we prophesy in part, but when perfection comes, that which is in part disappears. So really we're talking about looking into the future and trying to like look as in a dimly lit mirror, trying to figure out what's going to happen. And like even our brains, period, like we learn, so we don't know everything. And so it's really hard to put together a clear picture, and maybe some things go the way that we think it's going to go, and maybe it doesn't. We're just seeing like kind of misty trajectories, if you will. So that's the fair warning. We're just going to talk about parts. That's it. This is kind of the stuff that goes through my brain and that I chew on an awful lot. So what we're talking about, if we were to try to not make it in part, is kind of what, maybe Ray Kurzweil talks about, is some sort of technical utopia. And that's where, everybody is plugged in, right? So that would mean no privacy, which sometimes people get scared of, but it would also mean no sin. Possibly free from exploitation of the weak, be it slave labor, sexual exploitation, any sort of exploiting of weakness, because there would be no secrets, right? Also, possibly if machines were doing work for us, if you look in Revelation 18, I thought it was a really neat verse. This angel comes down and illuminates everything. And one of the things of marketplaces, products, if you will, that get eliminated in the rehearsal of Revelation 18 is men being sold as slaves. And to me, that's like, wait, when I go to work for someone, I'm kind of their slave for that dollar for a little bit. And so, if machines are kind of taking care of the day-to-day needs and we get, universal basic income, well, then maybe we could be at a place where we would be able to offer our gifts that God's given to the body rather than being forced, if you will, to a certain extent be exploited. Like, it's no fun. I got the printer working. It's not always fun going to work, and so it'd be a whole lot nicer to, if you got to operate in your gifting to offer to the body. So that's where we hope it goes. And so let's talk about, no future discussion would be complete without the red pill, blue pill. So I just had to throw it in. So get ready. We're going to take one of them and dive in. So when we're talking about foreshadowing, and by the way, guys, a lot of this, like, I'm the guy, you guys all know, I haven't had a lot of college. I had a little bit. So mine is not based off of tons of quotes, except for the Bible. I haven't read a ton of books and of, different philosophers or whatever. Mine's just the Bible and my everyday chewing on this stuff while I'm out cutting trees. So this approach, the thing I want to talk to you about is the perspective in the mind of the people who are writing the Bible, because my passion is to see how did these people who were writing the Bible that didn't have access to computers, how might they have used some amount of foreshadowing to us to say, hey, this is what might be coming. Okay, and remember, this is all in part because some of it sometimes feels a little heretical. Is that the right word, Micah? Heretical, heretic? Is that the way you pronounce that? Okay, sometimes it makes me go, oh God, am I really about to say this? But I am. So here we go. I'm going to ask you guys to stretch. one time, okay? Well, three times. Here we go for the stretch. Okay, back up. I'm going to back this up real quick. The foreshadowing from then to now. Let's take the objects that the men and women of the Bible and that time had to talk about our time on the way that God would reveal it. So the things they had, water. If we look at water, and I'm going to say one other thing, guys. You got to hear this one single thing. In talking about this, it's very easy to say it, like a long time ago, 5-8 years ago, it would be so easy to say, oh, Russell, dude, that's so crazy. Why are you doing that? Because, like, dude, that's just kind of water, clouds, computers, streams, data. I had a hard time with that argument 8 years ago. Now, with Elon actually putting brain chips in, it doesn't seem as crazy as it used to seem. Okay, it just doesn't seem as crazy. So track with me and let's look at these three elements. And I think you're going to find it really interesting. So let's look at water in the Bible. If we were to say, could water equal words? So the Bible says in John 14:4, but whoever, and we're going to replace water with maybe information or data. Whoever ingests, drinks the water or data that I will give him will never be thirsty or need more data to fulfill him. The data or water that I will give him will become in him a spring of data and information welling up to eternal life. Like, so we could see water being words there, perhaps. There's also in Revelation where the dragon was overflowing, water spewed out of his mouth, right, to try to overtake the woman. Interesting. The earth opened up and swallowed it. And I've always thought how strange. I wonder how could the earth swallow words or information? And it makes me think of hard drives because they kind of like ingest the data. Side note, but again, also thinking about just overwhelming the masses being overwhelmed with data right now, like especially with our communication, and even not just with data. I mean, like, even if you weren't, like, even in an age of computers, it's real easy to just get really overwhelmed with just too much untruth, right? So that I could see the dragon overwhelming, coming out of his mouth, say that as water. And then whoever believes in me, John 7:38, as the scripture said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And then it says, out of the abundance of the heart. So what's in the heart, what's coming out of the heart are words. Okay, so if we can settle that we'll just put water as words for a minute. Now this is where it gets kind of fun. That's the big jump. Okay, what's next? Okay, oops, that was 2. Sorry, I'm ruining the surprise because of my slow internet. Okay, we see clouds in the Bible, right? So we see clouds, and what are clouds made of? Water or words. How coincidental, right? Jesus comes back in the words. He was the word, right? In the beginning was the word. He says, behold, I come back. Behold, he cometh with the cloud. This is Revelation 1:7. Every eye will see, and they also which pierced him, all kindreds of earth, which shall wail because of him. Even so, amen. Okay, so he comes back in the clouds. Then in Timothy, it says we are caught up with him in the cloud. I mean, if we're talking about words, if we're talking about uploading, that seems to make sense. Okay, and then Hebrews, just for good measure, we'll throw in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, right? Okay, so think about this. May be like just the only way that these guys can kind of write down the spiritual elements that they're seeing, and then now this is like maybe manifesting into the world. So then we're still missing an element, and that is this. Okay, so like that's not gonna. Jesus can't live in that computer. Why? There's something missing, baby. So then we go to Matthew 24:7, 24:27. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even from the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. Look, guys, that fits. I'm not saying thus saith the Lord, but I do have some more good stuff. Okay, I think there's some more good stuff here. So, like, We have words in a cloud, and the coming of the Son of Man is electricity running through the cloud, be it the cloud of the global brain internet or the actual electrical impulses in our brain. I just think this is interesting stuff. So the return of Christ will be seen physically, okay, dwelling in our midst. Okay, so, and where 2 or 3 are gathered, there he is. So to keep on moving.
Mark,
So can you go ahead?
Yeah, it does. It is interesting to me that we do have this seeming inclination to use like metaphors about clouds and so forth. Obviously, iCloud and all this sort of stuff. But also even in terms of like uploading, people talk about uploading to the cloud, and we're using height metaphors, but we're also using I don't know, aerospace metaphors, and I'm not sure why we're doing that exactly, but we do seem to do that when we seek out ways to describe our technology. I think that's interesting. I don't know what it means, but I do think that's interesting and kind of an interesting point.
I almost put the slide in, Micah, from Mike Mahargue. Our experience with, I don't have it here, our experience with our beliefs should be experienced as a butterfly alighting in an open hand rather than Jim's mind from the ground and held with a clenched fist. So like all of this stuff is, I mean, you could write it off so easy by saying, well, Mark, this is just the confines of language and all of these different ways that you could write it off. You could also write it off, or you could also say, hey, maybe Elon's throwing chips in brains, and say maybe the confines are a reflection of what's happening somewhere in the spirit or something. I don't know. There's just a lot of coincidences, and I've spent a lot of time looking at these. So imagine if you're Jesus and in the future that your people are going to be jacked into the matrix, and they're going to be one with you, and you're going to be able to like zip information and commune with them, and just like everybody's going to be connected. And Jesus is like, and you're looking at these people, and they're very, very lost. They have no internet, so they can't Google a Bible verse. And so how would he say to them, hey, you can't handle this right now? And so when he's talking about the Holy Spirit, he says, hey, I have much more to reveal to you, more than you can now bear. But when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you in all truth. And, as far as the Holy Spirit, I think it's really interesting how we have a really easy time turning Jesus into a word, but as in the body, I've felt a lot of resistance from people trying to turn the personhood of the Holy Spirit back into words or into anything else. And like, it's really a bunch of resistance. And to me, it's real clear, Spirit of truth. And so to me, I think, well, if Jesus is the word, couldn't the Spirit be like metadata on the words of Christ, which would like almost validate that the words I speak are spirit and truth? And so it's like almost a validation of his words. Like, I don't know how to say that exactly, but like a parameter or something that says, yep, his words, this is Jesus, and thus they are true. And you can speak words that are based off of the words of Christ, and they would be true. And so I think about this idea of the future of computers, and if truth, the words we speak, could be imbued or like validated somehow, could supercomputers do that?
So wait, Mark, I have a question for you about that then. So it sounds like then one of the potential scenarios, right, could be something where the brain computer interfaces enable like a whole new level of speaking in tongues, where it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't sound like words, right, to like somebody that's not on that plane, but they may actually be a much more effective form of language, right, that can cross all sorts of barriers, at least the way that's always kind of intended.
That's later on in the in that maybe we won't even have language, like it's going to be like it says that God speaks to us in a foreign tongue, and that's the way he speaks to us. We're going to get to that in a second, but yes. For sure. Oh, I think we're there, as a matter of fact. Oh, I just put this in as a quick side note. I haven't seen this preached about, if you guys have ever watched any of the videos. So the kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman mixed into this one says 60 pounds of flour until it worked its way through the whole lump of dough. And what I see as a pattern, just in part, is I see kind of, if you guys have ever paid attention to Ray Kurzweil's How to Create a Brain, he talks about redundancies and how information is stored in neural packets around the brain in different places. And this information, in the same way that it probably moves around in the brain through its host matrix, in the same way, like the kingdom of heaven, the word of truth, the awesome word of who we have, moves through the global brain, moves through it infects the matrix, or I'm sorry, the host matrix. And even that verse, and you guys have probably heard me say before, but this, unless a seed, being the word, unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, then it like multiplies and makes many seeds, which is the same thing as this yeast. Let's go on to this next piece here. And that is what you're talking about, Lorenzo. And that is, if a man speaking one language can do this, then nothing will be impossible. Okay, and this is an if-then statement. And I was thinking about this when I was writing this today. We don't have to express this in if-then. We could just express it in the affirmative, which would say, mankind speaking one language can do this, and nothing will be impossible for them. As a quick side note, I've always experienced the church, you said, has gotten a lot of fear off of this verse and kind of built this thought framework that says the Tower of Babel fell because mankind would do all sorts of evil and like destroy mankind, kind of like what we do a lot of times. But what if you looked at it another way that said, hey, you guys don't have the right tools. You guys need to separate, but you're going to come back together. I've got a plan for you once the seed falls to the ground and I can get this word out like effectively, and you guys nothing will be impossible. Okay, that's what's coming, I believe. So could we control matter with our own mind, like Ray Kurzweil talks about, computronium, thinking to rocks, oxygenate our own blood by thinking about it, make our own bodies warm fed via thought? Could we fly, like change the molecules of our feet to have little flappers and fly up into the sky? Wouldn't that be awesome? So could we think like or with God, telepathically communicate with each other, which I definitely believe we're close. Resurrect the dead to some extent or another, or live forever. You guys know I'm a big Howard Storm fan. He died as an atheist, came back as a believer, and said that he saw people would choose to die 200 years. So I think that this is the trajectory we're on. Okay, so now going into building a house. So this is more into data, like data of making a case. Okay, so everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The stuff came, blowed against the house, and it didn't fall because of where he built it. But the one who doesn't, when that pressure comes, when it's not on the spirit, and this, Lorenzo is kind of like this, like if he is the immovable rock, his word is the immovable rock, then if we align with him in our words and our identity, then it doesn't matter what pressure comes up. And I feel like computers will be able to see this. Like, I don't think that's too much of a stretch, because if we can get it, why can't a supercomputer? In fact, I think the next slide, it's coming in a second. So this is Ray Kurzweil. This is his layers of abstraction. It's beautiful, because when you look at the word, the Bible, one of it, and I think this is in Isaiah, sorry, I didn't put the mention in it. It talks about, to whom would he teach knowledge, and to whom would interpret the message? Those weaned from milk, just taken from the breast, talking about a baby. So you get a baby and you show him a little line, and then you show him another line, and then you put another line, and maybe you teach him the word A, and then AP, APPLE. And like, it's this hierarchical layers of abstraction that our brain puts together with the neurons. And it says it right there in the word. Order on order, line upon line, precept upon precept is the way these levels of abstraction work that we're teaching computers. And at the bottom of this, it says, indeed, he will speak to his people through stammering lips and another language. And that Google just came out, or someone just came out with Google Translate, that they didn't, like this 3 or 4 years ago, that they no longer need a middle set. Like it can go in Spanish, a new phrase, and come out in French, and they don't need to turn it into a medium number, because the AI is starting to get good enough to do that. I believe that one day we're going to be able to think to each other, and it may not even be in words. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Let's go to the next slide. More parts. Making the case for Christ, guys. This is the exciting part. Okay, so when we're trying to share our faith, when you're building a house, you're building a case. I heard there was another near-death experience guy. His name's Eben Alexander. Okay, he's a brain surgeon, total atheist, died, experienced something. He's not too much Christian about it. But one thing he said is that when he was on the other side with helpers, he said he would ask a question. It was so beautifully worded. The answers would come back, but not empty, leaving you with more answers. And this is the best way to explain about this house, is that the answers would come back with like sub data or supporting data. And he said, as intricate as cities. Isn't that a cool way to describe that? Like you would just say one thing, but the intricacies that go into that entire process. And when you think about that verse earlier, we know in part, we prophesy, then we shall know fully, even as we're fully known. Guys, I think computers can do this because we in our meat brains, right there it says, we in our meat brains, we're not going to be able to build these cases because time is against us. But when augmented with supercomputers, the AIs can go through all those Dallerton cats and just go, wha-pow, and be able to get that answer to the person who's hurting on the other side of the world. That's how I think God's going to use computers. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So here's where it gets kind of fun. Here comes the heretics. This is it. Okay, Romans. What if we looked at Romans 12:1 a little bit different? Therefore, brothers, I urge you, in view of God's mercy, talking to the church, offer your bodies, I can't believe I'm saying this, as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing unto God. This is your true spiritual act of true act of worship. Oh, to put a chip in my head? What if it was a case, guys? Maybe it's the case, and we're going to keep on going, is to say why? Because what happens? What happens if we looked at this and said, oh, maybe he was talking about it? Let's look at the next. Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed from the renewing of your mind. You offer your body. Okay, and we're going to get to the numbers behind this in a second. By the renewing of your mind, then you will be able to test through the supercomputers and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So we're going to have monster algorithms judging these words with the attribute of the spirit of truth. Is it true? Is it not? Intricate as cities, and every word spoken could be measured. Books were opened. Let's keep on going. Man, this is fun. Okay, you guys are going to like this one too. Trust me on this. I put so that on this because this one, if I just saw this the other day, so that. This is the B1 one. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray for all those who will believe in me through their message. Imagine if it's through computer chips, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they be one, or may they also be in us. Here it comes. So that the world may believe that you have sent me. So that. Okay, so imagine if we become one through computers, the world's going to believe. That's your evidence. That's the point. Jesus wins. A solid house without a division stands. The one that's broke, the lost sheep, they're lost. They don't have Christ. And the word is going to accomplish its purpose. Let me keep on going. I have given them the glory, sons and daughters, that you have given me, that they may be one as we are one, I and them, and you and me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you have sent me and have loved me, even as loved them even as you love me. Guys, that is pretty cool if you look at it in terms of brain-computer interfaces and what God might be doing. Let's move on. That one's fun. I really do like that one.
Mark, I think what stands out to me and like connected to what you're talking about, like with the Tower of Babel, is this idea of the Tower of Babel essentially suggests that humanity couldn't handle that kind of connection and unity without destroying itself. And so it seems like the whole question is, are we spiritually mature enough and capable enough to handle this level of connection? I think we see that in Pentecost, that the answer is that through Christ we can handle that. And so the aim is for us to be one in that way, but we have to grow to be capable of handling it, seems like.
Mm-hmm. And I think machines here in a couple slides, and we're getting really, really close to the end. In a couple slides, we are going to see maybe a little bit about that. So let's go. We're just about done, guys. Sorry, this thing is, come on, little computer. Where are you?
Sorry, I threw you off your flow, Mark.
No, it's no problem. The problem actually is that my little hover is not hovering. There it is. Okay, should believers plug in? Okay, because now it's the big thing, right? If you're going to an evangelical church, I'm definitely the Antichrist, or maybe I am. Anyway, okay, should believers plug in? And then you look at Hebrews 10:25. Do not forsake the meeting of believers. So then you look at like COVID, and like everybody's going to church online. So like, what if God's calling us to plug in so that we can spread his word to the entire world, spread our faith like lightning, okay? The coming of the Son of Man like lightning through the global brain. So I would argue maybe we should. Not to forsake the meeting, being caught up in the cloud. Okay, so let's see, get to. So this is landing the plane. We're on 2 more ideas here. When he saw the crowd, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. They're in a separated state, guys. And like, as much as we want to say that our phones like make us connected, guys, we're so disconnected. Right now, we are so completely disconnected. I love having the ability to type a verse and now have it finished for me. That's so nice. But I really wish I knew people and their lives. By the way, as a quick side note, Lorenzo, your stinking talk a month ago so blessed my socks off. I didn't stay, but I watched it. And like, even just that alone, like, I think, like, this is a great example. Lorenzo's talk. Yeah, brother. Like, there are going to be times in the future, I believe, where there's a cloud of witnesses and someone on the other side of the world that this is the beautiful thing, guys. This is what I think is coming. They won't even start typing because there won't be typing. There will be a thought process that starts in their head, and the AI will catch it, recognize the pattern, connect them with someone who's been down that road, and be able to connect the two, and a ministering touch come across the internet. And like, that is one of strengthening. That's a unified house. But right now we don't have that. We are very separated. So let's look at the harvest. Okay. And this is like, we're getting right toward the end here. Matthew 9:37, but he said to his people, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And I want you to pay attention to that, because we're going to talk about that just a little bit. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord, for the Lord of the harvest, send out laborers into the harvest field. So let's talk about the old way of looking at that. I grew up in the church since 19, and that verse was always used like almost like condemnation. We got to go out. We got to get people saved. Got to go on missions trips. What if, and I'm going to propose something. Here's the proposition. What if it's known that mass meat evangelism will never work. What if we took it from that perspective and we just accepted you're never going to reach everybody in the middle of the Amazon jungle? It just can't happen. So then we looked at it a different way. And we looked at these combines here. So these combines, if you really look at what is behind those combines, there are millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of human labor hours back in time to the invention of fire, to in the pistons of those motors, to the invention of a wheel. Think about how long it took for someone to invent electricity, and all of the human labor. If you really looked at it, it would just fan out to get all the way to this little tippy point where the harvest is plentiful, but the labor to do it is few. What if we didn't see it the other way, but we just said, oh yeah, because the way the harvest is going to come in is going to be based off the back of a lot of work, based off a lot of people jacking in, based off a lot of people speaking into their phones, based off it. And this is the other beautiful part about this, guys, is that the physicality of the combine does get a lot of grain. What we're talking about is spiritual harvest of people, but we've digitized it. I don't remember. Oh, it was Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy talking about the digitization of all the goods and services, and how Google has digitized and Amazon has digitized so much to provide product in a digital form where there's no more. And so what we're talking about is harvesting souls and spirits of people digitized. And so if in the winning them, perhaps with brain interface. And so the idea is, how is that built? It's built off of all those people for years and years and years, and then computer algorithms, and bringing it up to the point where you put the chip in, you plug in, and mass harvesting requires lots of upfront man hours and participation for the machines to do the harvest. No looking into the future sermon thought would be complete without a dragon with water flowing out of his mouth. So then the dragon was enraged and went off to make war with the woman and the rest of her offspring, those who keep the commands of the hold fast to the testimony of Jesus. Therefore you rejoice, heavens and earth, and dwell in them, but what are heavens and you dwell on them, but what are the earth and the sea? Because the devil's gone down to you, he's filled with fury. And this is the encouraging part, because he knows his time is short. And I believe it is. I believe we're in the last days. And I think God is going to use brain-computer interfaces. There you go. That's it. That's the best organization I think I've ever done of these crazy ideas. Thoughts? What do you think, Micah?
Very nice. Very nice. Thanks for laboring over this for us, Mark. I know that you were had a lot of other stuff going on, and so yeah. Anyone questions or comments on any of that?
Well, one comment I put in the chat is this idea that, like, we're already seeing the power of recommendation systems on a platform as big as YouTube, where YouTube is basically crowdsourcing the content from a bunch of individuals engaging with the platform. But right now, it mostly has a radicalizing effect, like it's bad. But what I said was, like, if COVID becomes the reason as to why a lot of churches now start putting up their stuff online, and it's no longer just the mega churches like Joel Osteen type thing, even though I'm not trying to shame people, but like, that kind of content, like the McDonald's / Burger King version of churches, right? Instead, we start getting some Chipotle, Panera Bread version of church content, right? And the recommendation system finds the audience for you, and then the more people engage with the content, the more it gets recommended in this feedback loop, where I swear, I think the YouTube recommendation system is done more for like ideological or worldview changing than almost any other force in society, even more than a government, I think. And so now it could be like in a positive way. And so once we are brain-computer interfaces, like once we get plugged in, it's even faster, right? Because then all of our interactions make the recommendation system stronger to further improve.
there's an argument, two things real quick. There's an argument that could be made. I've heard a lot of programmers have a hard time thinking about some of these ideas because it seems you can't see the forest for the trees because you're busy writing code every day and you're like, dude, there's just no way. But when you look at that combine and you think about, like, I'm not going to say Thomas Edison. Let's just talk about the chemist, 200 years ago or whatever, that was trying to learn how to make rubber for tires. And if you were going to say something like, hey, one day, whatever you're working on is going to it's going to be part of feeding the world. Like, there's just no way that it's such a big jump. It would be really easy to doubt that. One thing that you were saying about plugging our brains in and recommendations, I saw on Facebook, I actually commented to the guy. He's like, these policing algorithms are popping up instantly now and saying that I'm going to be banned for a month if I don't rewrite it, which is interesting because at least they're giving them a chance to rewrite it and it's an algorithm. But isn't that neat that an algorithm is picking up nasty intentions? And see, to me, that's beautiful because I grew up like as having Asperger's. It was hard growing up, big time. And I wish that there was a filter that would have come probably off of my mouth at times, but off of other people's mouth toward me because it was devastating. And like, it's really nice to have these machines that will shut that down. And some of the world sees that as really horrible, but I see that as great because we shouldn't be tearing each other down.
I think there's a lot. I'm trying to understand non-verbal thought processes. I was listening to a Noam Chomsky thing not so long ago, and I profoundly disagreed with him on a bunch of things because I do a lot of thinking that takes a long time to come out as words, and I can often like think of something I'm trying to say and it takes a long time to come out, and often those are, as I said in the chat, three-dimensional engineering structural things, or their business organizational things, or their how this project team is going to feel, how people are going to interact. And there's a lot of deep stuff that goes on there. So I'm just wondering, what is the protocol that's going to get that? At the moment, the only protocol we have is language, which is not very good, very low bandwidth. So what's the new communication protocol for those thoughts? Because
Memes?
My thoughts are entirely different to Lorenzo's or Mark's or Martha's, and it depends what they come out in English. If I've been in a Spanish speaking place and speaking Spanish for a long time, then I'll come out in Spanish sometimes. But yeah, how do we deal with this? What's the protocol for thought to thought?
That's what I'm saying, memes. It could be that we stop thinking verbally and instead we start using, because what is it in Ender's Game? Like the aliens, like they communicate with memories, like they share memories with each other, so they're visual. So that's why they don't have language and they never write anything down, because they just share like memories with each other. So like, and I think about it as like a meme, where it's like, if I have to respond to you, I'll show you like, I don't know, the face of somebody, laughing, somebody crying, and if you're trying to communicate to me, if you're trying to teach me something, you show me a clip, right, of somebody doing it.
So maybe that's what the Chinese language is, when there's like 1,500 characters. Some of those characters are just like memes, aren't they? I'd love to ask a Chinese speaker that.
Yeah, the way I think about it is emojis. It's why it's like one step prior to like full on like picture, it's like an emoji. So that's why a sequence of emojis can change the meaning of the individual emojis and stuff. But once you start having memes, and memes can only exist, right, if there's a diverse amount of content production that gets clipped by a bunch of people and then selected, and then whoever selects it ends up creating a meme that can be referenced by other people, right? And it can be instantly shared. And so then the meme starts to take on like a life of its own, right? Because think of the people who it's their yearbook picture. It's like they have like a funny yearbook picture and it becomes a meme. It's like that person wasn't trying to, and instead it just became like the perfect vehicle to communicate, something on the internet.
I have a comment. By the way, hi, I'm Caleb. I'm new. But one idea that I was thinking about was essentially what you're talking about, Mark, is the idea that a technology becomes a something that is very something that I guess we're very theologically comfortable with, right? And one parallel I can think of is with literature, because literature is a technology that we become very like I think there's kind of this theology of literature, right? And like Christians are called people of the book, or these Protestants, and we have the written scriptures, and then you have works like King Arthur and Beowulf, and just very like we're very comfortable with literature, and then no one's going to say literature is of the devil or something like that. So I think kind of what you're talking about, how we can think of like certain technologies like artificial intelligence, kind of creating a theology of artificial intelligence where Christianity, where we can think of it in a Christian way, which I think there is a need to think of Christianity in a technology in a Christian way, because I think that the ideology behind social media and behind and behind kind of the current big tech phenomenon isn't necessarily Christian. So I guess it's an interesting attempt to create kind of a Christian theology of digital technology. So that's one thing I thought of. If it makes sense.
That's what we're here
Martha,
for.
are you able to?
Yeah,
Are you able to talk?
that's definitely the integration and trying to figure out how it fits, because how can we have faith in the face of so much change, because it's not exactly how a lot of the sermons have been preached. And so how can we look at this technology and maybe understand I don't know, just how it fits, how to embrace it.
I think this idea of like going back and forth between kind of language and maybe something else, right? That we're expressing things with memes and emojis and so forth. I do think we're capturing emotions that we don't necessarily have words for in every language, and there's something to that. And I think this is my like historically, most of people's experience with Christianity would have been through things like icons and architecture, even, right? And these are multimedia ways of engaging with some kind of a spiritual idea or something like that. And so I think there's like both of those things. I think they both play a role. Like if you think about DNA like starts out as a code and then grows into an organism, and then like returns as a code again, right? And it keeps going like that. And so I think there's some kind of relevance for both of those processes, both the kind of language and code, and then like the more full-bodied expression of things.
Another thing I wanted to add real quick in terms of the Tower of Babel convo is that I think it was Jonathan who said that one of the ways in which we should interpret it, or maybe it was Neil, forget, was like the Tower of Babel was bad because it's going vertical, not horizontal. So it's like isolating as opposed to increasing access, like expanding. And Micah, you just said like there's certain feelings that are not necessarily captured by language, and I feel like specifically it's fascinating to learn about how there are like emotions in German. They're like are not translatable in like other languages. It's why a lot of philosophers do use ancient Greek in many ways, right? To talk about certain things, right? Like it's almost like we needed the Tower of Babel to collapse initially to create the kind of diversity necessary to actually like prevent human development from stagnating by converging towards like a single equilibrium, right? Like, and so instead we have to find a way, which is super complex, right, to like have just enough diversity, right, to always keep expanding, enough stagnating while also being unified. and it wouldn't be, and that's what I'm saying, like, it probably wouldn't be through some sort of standardized language. It would have to be with a sort of like meta level of communication, whether it's emojis, memes, or speaking in tongues, in this kind of.
Martha said, if you go back to Aztecas, Mayas, Egyptians, it was images, how we got their messages, right? So yeah, the way that we understand those cultures is through images rather than text. And it does raise interesting questions if we think of those as like memes or emojis from the ancient past, right? Like even are we picking up all the nuances of what they saw in them, that kind of stuff. That's an interesting question.
Yeah. The like communicating through pictures or memes or even statues, in Rome, like what if, like, just in thinking about, like, going back to that example of how Google was saying that they don't need Micah, maybe you can help me with this thing, a middle pair, like a base set to have like with Bitcoin, for example, you send in X amount of US dollars, it's against the Bitcoin, that's a reference point, it translates and out comes the Canadian dollars or something. And they don't need that base set of correlation numbers to number every word in the US language and every word in French. It's not needed anymore with the new AI that they have out. And so if we can do that with words and we were plugged into a brain and the AI knew you from birth, like this idea of just like being able to communicate, like for example, what Lorenzo was saying, emotions that aren't even like relevant or have words in our language, man, wouldn't that be beautiful to be able to talk to people? And like, like Peter DeMonte said in the Singularity, is like, when we get plugged in, like, you're not going to want to unplug. That might really be, he said it'd be so super lonely, It's very interesting. As a side note, Howard Storm also said, and I don't mean to beat this drum all the time, but what he said in that is that people would leave the group for a time just to experience separation and then come back in. What he saw was just so incredibly interesting, the stuff that he saw. Anyway.
I also think, there's something very equalizing about the brain-computer setting, because if you're, for example, born deaf, language is like a very different experience, right? Music is a very different, I would love to like be able to connect with Beethoven's brain, like later in his life, the way he's experiencing music, like to just understand, or like blind painters. Like I love stuff like that, where it's like, how do they understand these? And again, like we think of language as this kind of like universal thing, but it's like, no, but like there would have to be some sort of, it would be more about literally the vibes, like transferring vibes to each other.
Can you all hear me now? Yeah.
I can almost hear you.
Almost? Okay, I had apparently selected I needed to put the headset. Anyway, I just wanted to say before, for the longest time, I've been telling my husband, when I was telling him a story, or say something that happened at work, I not only want to describe what happened, but I wish he could feel what I felt in that moment. And my words are not gonna, do good to represent what someone said or whatever. And I wish I could just transfer the memory. And then you guys were talking about think to each other and communicating with memories. And I was over here like, yes, but you couldn't hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Point of view gun and hitchhiker's guy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, to be able to see the world from somebody else's point of view, and that actually raises the question of like, how much shared baseline do you have to really communicate in that way, right? So certain kinds of memes probably communicate. Yes, thanks for being here, Lorenzo. Certain kind of memes probably communicate things that like some of us can pick up on the vibe and others can't. Like and I know that there are memes that like are over my head or something like that. We don't have the shared experience, right? So there has to be some kind of, seems like there has to be some kind of level of shared experience.
Even with languages, you can learn a language, but to the shared experience point, there will be not just cultural references, but things of being a native speaker that you can't really. It happens to me with English. I can read a contract, I can talk to all of you, but there are certain things that I just have to say in Spanish. So that immersion / shared experience is so necessary. You were talking about emotions before in German, and it's so to the point. I mean, when you see an Italian, Argentinian speak with their hands in a certain way, there is so much that goes into that, into expressing the emotion. I was reading the other day, and I forget which language it was, but that they don't have pronouns. So with this whole he, she, hers, they, and everything, that's a problem they don't have. So I mean, so many things that come into play.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm opening Google Translate to see what Jonathan typed in the.
He agrees with me. He agrees with me.
See, yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's what Google says. Yeah. Nice. Oh, Yeah, I think that idea about pronouns too kind of is interesting to me, because the biblical languages don't have the same way of dealing with pronouns that like English does, for example. Thanks, Neil. Yeah, so there's like we have the idea that a neutral pronoun like it or something like this is dehumanizing, but that's not really how Greek and Hebrew work. And so that's kind of interesting too, because we make translation choices there that are very definitely shading how people think about what the texts are saying. And even translating back and forth, that's a big question. Like, how, what's the correct way to do this? Is the Holy Spirit an it or a he? I don't think the biblical languages actually tell us. So,
and that's with using the same alphabet. When you go to Asian languages, someone was explaining to me, I believe in Korean, there is no word for house, but it's home. And the character is actually, I'm gonna say someone, but I don't know what they actually draw inside a place because it's protected. So the whole concept of home is so different to just a house, a property, So well, this is a topic we could talk about just of this thing for hours.
That's great.
I think it's a good topic because I feel sad with the church in a lot of ways that have run in fear from technology or whatever, because it's going to be really beautiful to be able to connect. Very, very beautiful to be able to connect with people, to be known fully, or to know fully even as we were fully known. That's a good place, man. I think that's a good place.
And don't you guys think the church may slowly become extinct if it doesn't give way to technology?
Religion will. Stiff-neckedness will. And then this is the other thing, at the end of the day, there is a branch of the church that says, oh, when you see, that's when you need to run to the hills. Well, go run to the hills. We're going to be plugging in, and that's okay. And, at the end of the day, certain people will die off and it's not a big deal. And then there will be more people who continue. And, I guess the point is after 10, 12 years or 10 years of chasing this one direction in Christianity, I do realize when I didn't before that, oh, everybody has to change their mind. No, they don't. They can live their lives. If this thing is gonna really take off, it'll be for a couple generations down the line. And that church will look real different than it did, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
And with everything, those who adapt will survive.
Yeah.
I will have to go soon as well. I just wanted to say before I go, Mark, you are a great public speaker.
Oh,
I don't know you well, but wow. Yes.
Muchos gracias. I appreciate that.
De nada, you're welcome.
Yeah, great conversation, everybody. Thanks for being part of this. And yeah, we're doing this again next first Thursday. I think Chris Bennick is on the roster, and of course on the 8th we're doing the robotic persons thing with Joshua K. Smith. Love to know anything else that you guys would like to cover or talk about. I think we're very, very interested in hosting all kinds of different conversations here. So just kind of keep that in mind.
2 quick things,
Yeah.
Micah, for video. Whenever you want to talk about that, or whenever we get Slack, if you want to, I'm a video guy.
Mm-hmm.
I've said that to you before. We just have never connected on it, and I can put some time in. And then secondly, is Clubhouse only iPhone? Can you get
It is
Club-
right now. Yeah.
Are they going to get it on Android? Any ideas?
Yeah, they will, but I'm not sure when. It's probably in the next couple of months, I think.
Oh,
Something
that'd be
like that.
awesome. Okay, because I feel so left out.
So
I feel so disconnected.
yeah.
I need a chip. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, TikTok. There you go.
Mark, if it's that desperate, there's
I'm very proud to not have a TikTok account, and the pandemic didn't make me join. But since he's talking about videos, I think isn't that the most viral thing now?
Very viral.
Yeah.
Videos
There
are the
you go.
art form of this age.
What's that, Caleb?
I said video is the art form of this age in some ways.
Yeah. Mark, you ought to try TikTok. That would be pretty interesting. That's I'm just
Someone can give me, if someone, I don't do funny, I do video. So give me a funny idea and I'll edit it up.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. It's beyond me, but yeah.
Thank you guys.
Good stuff. Yeah. All right. Everybody have a good night.
Bye
Have a good
all.
night.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take it easy.
have a great Easter, everyone.